Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we've got a very special guest. His name is Earl Thompson, and Earl's got an amazing story, but really what caught my eye and what I just learned was that he lost his wife to leukemia, and it's a life-changing event. And Earl's been involved with rehab and therapy for many, many years. And without me tripping over my tongue any much more, Earl, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for the invite.
Well, it's my pleasure. And, I'm always looking to have a conversation with people that have experience around a health-related event or topic. And wow, it sounds like you've got quite a journey behind you and probably another one in front of you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I was married to this wonderful woman, and then we found out after our honeymoon that she had acute myeloid leukemia. She battled it for 4.5 years, and then in remission, and then it came back. And the last time it took her. So I was single for about, 4 or 5 years. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, I know this casting person on a reality TV show they're going to be doing, and it's a dating show, and it's regarding women who want a man and don't necessarily need a man." And I said, "No, thank you." But she prodded me for about a week, and I finally succumbed and threw up some pics and threw up a profile. And then after interviews with many different people with Bravo over the course of a month, I got selected to be on the show.
Okay.
And so my journey before that, I've been a rehab counselor, rehab specialist for 28 years, working with people with disabilities and injuries. So my background's in counseling and then testifying and as an expert witness in front of juries and in front of judges.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's quite a thing. I ran a human rights nonprofit for almost 20 years, and I was able to get qualified as an expert witness a few times. But that was one of the things we did, is brought to defendants who couldn't really afford them some qualified testimony that helped their cases in many times.
Oh, that's amazing. What kind of legal areas?
It was really about people that had been persecuted for the drug war, cannabis cases primarily.
Okay.
And in the world, you got people that have been locked up over growing a plant, literally.
I
And
know.
I was one of them. I got prosecuted, persecuted, and fought my way out of it. But a lot of people don't have the wherewithal or the knowledge or whatever it takes to do that. And I figured, well, let's help some of those who have a hard time with all that.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. That's amazing.
So with your rehab, how did you get into that?
I was a guy who thought I'd be a professional pitcher. I threw a fastball about 95 miles an hour and could throw a football 80 yards. And then my senior year, I tore my shoulder. And I had an undergrad in psych, which you can't do much with. So I went into a master's level rehabilitation counseling program without knowing much about it. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So
Wow.
I always talk to people about sometimes you got to shut the door of who you were before and open the door of who you're going to become and find the joy,
Absolutely. It's wild. I've had a number of guests that had a similar story where they were on the verge of, being an athlete on a large stage, and then also something happened. And, you spend your life training and preparing yourself, and this is it. You got everything right, and then your body gives out, and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like you said, you got to shut a door and open this up. So tell me about your rehab experience. What is that whole, like, it sounds to me like it's physical and mental rehab that you're working with.
Yeah, since I'm an expert in jobs, I assist people in like four areas, which is cognitive, neuropsych, psychiatric, psychological, physical, and then pain. Those are the four areas, and try to determine what kind of work they can do,
Hmm.
if any, based on their impairments. So I work with plaintiff and defense attorneys pretty equally, and I testify in court, like I said, in front of juries and judges if need be.
Well, I would say that that's a noble and needed niche without too much alliteration. I think that's it's really like you got people that are struggling maybe their whole life, maybe they got injured, maybe they just found out, whatever it is. And then, a lot of people are just trying to have a regular life. They're not looking to to be to be that thing. Like people try to identify me as a cancer survivor. I'm like, no, I'm just a guy, and I happen to have a chapter that involved that, but that's not who
Right.
I am. I don't want to be defined by an event or a series of events. And a lot of people are that way. They want to just go and live their life, but then you've got a challenge, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, whatever it is, and you try to get a job, and if the market's not swinging your way, it's a difficult task, or even whatever it is. Maybe it's try to rent an apartment or buy a car or whatever it is. There's these obstacles that can get in your way because of a disability of one sort or another.
And it can happen at any moment in your life. That's the one thing. You could be a neurosurgeon. And I've had a case like this where a piece of metal flew off into his eye.
Uh-huh.
And he went from making over $1 million a year to
Yeah.
making 100 and something a year because he
Yeah.
couldn't operate anymore. And
Right.
so, literally, I mean, I've had the experiences many times where things have changed the course of my life or my friend's life.
Mhm.
And I just try to let people know that, you think you got it all together, but literally in a millisecond, it can change.
Yes.
And you're going to grieve your old life and it's going to
Right.
suck. And, you got to process that. But at some point, you have to close that door,
Right.
or you'll never find the joy in your next chapter. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's a powerful tool. I'm working with a number of prison inmates right now that we have a series in this show that's called Healthy Living Through Adversity, and they're sharing their stories about childhood trauma and the tools they're using to get through it. And I'm learning a lot right now about all of these
wow.
things. I'm one of these freaks who didn't have a horrible traumatic childhood. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so I got my ass beat a few times, but it wasn't like, to me, I didn't have one of these major traumas that so many kids have.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and so I'm learning so much about trauma and its effect on the adult, and and the tools that people are using to solve it. So this notion of closing the door is kind of a new one to me. I haven't, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We focus so much on what are you doing now, what are you going to do, but to look at acknowledging something and saying, okay, I'm not there anymore. That seems to be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and placing them in a position where they're going to succeed, right? So if somebody has that trauma or triggers and they get out and they're bagging groceries or they're a cashier at a supermarket, that might not be the best fit for them because if there's any confrontation, they can explode and then lose
Right,
their job.
right.
So it's really important to fit them in a scenario based on their trauma or where they're at in their trauma process to find them something that's going to really fit.
And I guess it's happened over the course of many years, but your experience, I mean, it seems like you're covering a huge spectrum of people, huge spectrum of situations. Where I know today it's kind of easy to find information, but good information isn't always easily found.
Right.
How do you know to advise people or to guide people in the best way when there's so many different scenarios? Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Yeah, so you working in the prison system, that's under the field of rehabilitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one area we can go into. We can go into so many different areas as rehab counselors, but I chose vocational because I found that really fascinating, and it really can impact someone's life in an amazing way. So if depending what you have going on, you can go through the Department of Labor. They have people that can assist you. If you're in any type of litigation, then your attorney can actually hire someone like me to assist.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the resources for that, usually Department of Labor or the VA, if you have any military experience, they have resources for that. But I try to go on podcasts. I do TikTok lives, and try to answer questions, because
Yeah.
I cover so many areas in my work, like medical malpractice, personal injury, workers' comp, divorce, long-term disability, social security. They're so different and unique.
Right.
And sometimes people, they call up in a law firm they see on a bus and they don't have a good result. Okay.
Right.
And so even my friends, I'm like, why didn't you ask me? I could have
Yeah,
given
yeah,
you
yeah.
like 10 referrals, So, I mean, anyone that wants to reach out or has questions, I'll give you my TikTok and Instagram and
Yeah.
and you can reach out to me and I'll help any way I can.
I love that. And so your business, are you directly connected to the Department of Labor, or you're an independent contractor that's just on a list of people, or how do you
I
operate?
Yeah, I used to do cases like welfare to work for moms that were struggling and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But then I opened my own company. And so I didn't have access to that anymore. But
Okay.
I know how it works. And I know since I've been self employed since 2003, most of my cases are litigation cases or helping someone find work, or do resumes or how do you find a job? So I do a lot of different things like that, but I don't necessarily get cases from Department of Labor anymore or the
Oh,
VA.
okay. Got
Yeah.
it. So the spectrum of people that you work with, you kind of thrown out a bunch of things, but what would you think is, the most extreme side to maybe the most extreme on another side? I mean, I know that we're dealing with so many different facets, but how would you sort of profile the spectrum of people that you work with?
Well, I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, people with head injuries, burn victims, amputations, but then, people with orthopedic problems, shoulders, knees, back, and then I evaluate people who have schizophrenia or bipolar. And, those are the most challenging because it's amazing. When they get on medication, there's a high percentage that actually think I'm fine, and then they come off the medication, and
Yeah.
then bam! I mean, parents can't find their kids, husbands can't find their wives, vice versa, until they show up, in a mental health ward or something, or the police, because when they lose it, they lose it, and they need the most support, and so and any trauma, any prior trauma, you really got to get that under control before you can really blossom as a person completely, in my opinion. So,
That's wild. I just recently interviewed a guy who was schizophrenic, and he had written a book about, being misdiagnosed and all of the, chaos that his life took on. And you just brought up what I think is a really important point. I don't even know how you would think to resolve it, but when somebody has a mental condition, whatever it is, that needs medication to treat, which many of them are, and like you said, when they're on their meds, they feel great. And
Right.
and then so many times though, without somebody, I don't know, keeping an eye on them or or unless they're, highly motivated, like this guy made a decision that he wanted to stay in this good place. And so he has all these tools and tricks that he has to make sure he stays on point, but most of them don't. And,
Yeah.
I know, like myself, the regimen I was on to overcome the cancer was brutal and grueling and very difficult. And as soon as I felt better, it would be real easy to quit that. And,
Right.
and so the same thing, I'd imagine, if you're struggling with voices or whatever the problem is, and all of a sudden you're feeling good. I don't know, you just feel like living.
Yep.
How do you
And
deal
and
with
then and then if they while they're out there living off the medication,
it?
then
Right.
they start self-medicating.
Yeah.
All right, which might be booze, it
Right.
might be pills, it might be, marijuana. And marijuana has so many wonderful uses,
Sure.
but for schizophrenia,
Yeah.
not so much,
Not
right?
perfect for everybody, that's for sure. Yeah.
Right, right. So the key is to explain going in what the pitfalls are. And most of these people are highly intelligent,
Mhm.
okay? It just the chemicals in their brain start switching, and
Right.
there's no rhyme or reason. They can't figure out why.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why they're on so many different medication regimens till they get it right, where the
Mhm.
person's the best they can be and live the best life. But
Right.
sometimes that can change every 2 or 3 months. And most people don't realize that. So when you see someone homeless on the street talking to themselves, that person might have been a pilot.
Right.
That person might have been a CEO who just had a nervous breakdown,
Yeah.
or lost a child and just lost it. You never know where they're coming from.
It's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. That gets into a whole nother conversation. But when you're dealing with these people and you're dealing in court, what are most of the cases about? Are they, a plaintiff against an employer, or I mean, how the court system, I'm very familiar with the court system on one level, but this is very different. I don't understand or know, like, what types of cases are you dealing with?
So the majority of the cases are litigated. So Social Security is completely different because you're applying for benefits you might have earned, or there's SSI benefits, which are for like stay-at-home moms who never had a work history. It's kind of a welfare program.
Mhm.
Okay, you get cancer as a mom who's been a stay-at-home mom. So that just helps out them if they're a single mom. But
Okay.
the others are all to determine, can they work? And if they can't work, how much money will they lose over the course of their life? Or will they get benefits like on a workers' comp case? Or it might be getting them a service they need, like a lumbar fusion or a knee replacement. People get their benefits cut off all the time in workers' comp, but that's such a unique area. The others are all about, how much money will I lose over the course of my life based on this medical malpractice case, this truck hitting me while I was sitting in traffic, or crossing a crosswalk, So those are the type of areas.
So there's a wide spectrum of types of cases that you deal with. It's not necessarily, it could be again a plaintiff in an insurance company, it could be a government
Right.
agency, it could be anything like that.
It
And
can. Yeah.
how how impactful do you feel that your testimony has been to a lot of these people?
It depends which side I'm on, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, some people, they lose their case because it wasn't a strong case,
Yeah.
and so they might not like me as much. And then on the plaintiff side, you know, if they win, they really like me, and the insurance company doesn't like me, right? So,
Okay.
but I've built my business on being fair. So no matter what person hires me, my opinion is my opinion. And I'll tell an attorney, an insurance company, a plaintiff, you don't have a case here.
Right.
Okay. And then I'll give them recommendations like, maybe settle, or here's some things to point out in a mediation that might increase the settlement value or reduce the settlement value. I call those mediation talking points. And so I'm able to, I get a lot of respect just because I don't go too far out on a limb and
Uh-huh.
everything I say makes sense. you know,
All right.
and I'm not cocky. There's a lot of experts that come in their
Oh, yeah.
$4,000
Right.
suits, and that's not me. I'm a guy from Chicago,
All
so
right.
yeah.
So what I know that we were talking earlier and you've got some other things that you're working on, but with this, sounds like it's a pretty valuable niche that you carved. What are your plans with that? Like, how do you, is it something that you just stay busy with, or is it something that you train other people, or how do you grow a business like that?
I've been busy within the first 6 months of opening my company. So it's recession proof. If the economy's bad, people file for Social Security benefits. If the economy's strong, people are getting hurt or in accidents. So I've never really had a downturn ever. So I don't market. I don't have to. I've been doing this a long time. I think I've only lost like 8 cases in 28 years. So I kind of know what I'm doing, and I can tell, both, like I said, both sides, it's really a good case to mediate. So I'm not really, I love helping people, but I stay busy all the time with that. And, the next thing you asked me was the future on that. I'm 60 years old, and I'd like to transition into something that makes me more mobile so I can travel more. So I'm
Mhm.
looking at some point maybe sell my practice and stay on as a consultant to help the next generation.
Nice.
And then keeping the part-time Social Security stuff that I can do from anywhere. Like I've done hearings in like Italy and Germany at 4 a.m, so, you know, so I'd like to keep that. And then as I talked to you beforehand, I've been taking acting and improv and voiceover classes, and I'm loving every minute of it. So
Oh, cool.
that'll allow me to do other things too, more remotely.
Excellent. Excellent. What do you think? I always like, when somebody's got to practice, your type of a business, I always like to hear at least one anecdote of something that was an extreme case that you made a big impact on.
Yeah. So this one attorney was coming at me pretty hard. I was on the plaintiff side. He was on the defense side. He was getting in my face. And I looked at the judge and I asked them, can he step back or can I give him a breath mint? And he had 2 big cups of coffee. He's like, "Rrr." And then he asked me a question and that he wished he never asked me. He said, no psychologist said this person can work or can't work. And I said, well, actually, they could. And I thumbed very slowly through the records because I knew exactly where it was.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, yeah, right here. The doctor said that the person was disabled from all from all work based on the psychological impairments. And man, you could see him just face got all red.
I love it.
And that's happened a few times where attorneys ask me a question. Like one of my favorite things in front of a jury is when the opposing counsel asks me a question and I go, that's a fantastic question. And then I look at the jury because I'm about to shred them. And you could just see all the blood drain from their face.
Uh-huh.
So it's a little theatrical, but you
Yeah,
really
yeah.
have to
Oh,
have the
no.
knowledge. Yeah.
Sport is very theatrical in some cases,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
is. Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
have your Perry Mason moments.
Right. I've had quite a few of those in my career. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Well, you covered a whole lot of ground here, and I'd like to see, is there a thought that you would like to leave our audience with about your experiences?
Yeah. You know, I've done so many things in my life, but after my wife, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had my career, but, and then this thing from Bravo came up, the reality dating show, and I wound up winning it. And since then, I've had a publicist, and I've got to do a lot of cool things in New York. I was at Page Six, went on the Wall of Fame at the New York Post, went to Fashion Week. I mean, my life changed so completely. And what I tell people all the time, it's never too late.
Mm-hmm.
If you've always wanted to take an acting class, or you always wanted to take a pottery class, or some class, take it. You never know if you're going to be good at it. I mean, I'm really doing pretty well in voiceover and acting. I'm going to be on an upcoming episode of The Tulsa King, and I haven't really even tried yet, So
Nice.
sometimes you just got to kind of gamble on yourself and just go. It's going to feel extremely uncomfortable. But once you're there, everyone's uncomfortable. And you lean on each other. And the next thing you know, you're getting some good feedback. Maybe not at first, but that's okay, So try something that you've never thought of doing, and it can really impact your life and bring you tremendous joy that you never saw. You never even knew you had the talent for. So
I love that. That's a powerful thought, and it's certainly true. Is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with as far as how to reach you or anything you want to promote?
sure. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Earl the Pearl. That was my name on the show. It's been my name my whole life. Earl the Pearl 35, or TikTok Earl the Pearl 35, or Earl Thompson on Facebook. I don't have a website or anything, so that's probably the best way to reach me. And feel free, if you just have a question or something, give me a little time. I'm pretty busy, but I will answer you, and I'll point you in the right direction.
Fantastic. Earl, well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. It's always an eye-opening experience, and I didn't really know what to expect with you as a guest. I didn't get a lot of information about you, but you got a wealth of experience, and you're doing some great work out there.
Thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure meeting you too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I'd like to thank all of our listeners for making this show possible, and we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.